did go to Snohomish, though. That's a beautiful peninsula.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you enjoy the north side?
Oh, it was amazing. It was just amazing. We went to waterfalls in the wintertime that we took these big monster trucks in that you couldn't get in any
Did
other
go
way.
to
And
Snohomish.
so
Mhm.
got some great pictures up there. But I would like to go back and go down the southern route and go to some of the waterfalls down there.
We'd like to go back and go up the northern route where we haven't gone, do the whole ring road. Uh, the island is only as big as like Kentucky, I think.
Yeah, I'd be kind of scared to go right now. All of the photographers are going crazy and flying in to get pictures of the volcano.
Yeah.
And we really don't know when that thing is going to really blow.
Hmm.
I mean, the volcanologists there, they keep track of it and they talk about where it's going to go and how much it's going to release and stuff. But when it comes right down to it, we really don't know a lot about what's going on really deep in the earth.
We had that volcanologist a couple of years ago give that presentation, and he runs towards towards the molten lava.
Yeah, he had that one in Hawaii where he had to get was it the Coast Guard or the military that had to help him get out of there with the
Right.
helicopters? That was a pretty amazing presentation.
It was.
Yeah, we'll have to get him on again and see what he's up to. Right now, he's chasing a lot of storms in the Midwest. So,
No,
well,
there's
let's get
got
started here since it's a little after 10, although this is going to be sort of a quieter, simpler digital forum day. Welcome everybody to the digital forum. We got a fair number of people here on a rainy Saturday morning. We don't have any guest speaker other than me, myself, and I talking about the latest stuff in Photoshop and Lightroom. Plus, we'll be glad to take any general questions that you might have on anything. So this is just sort of a free-flowing Saturday, and we'll see how that goes. And if it works well today, we'll do some more. If not, I'll just keep trying to get more speakers. We do have two speakers lined up. And let me pull their.
Jeff, did you want to record this? I didn't get the warning that you're recording.
Yeah, it's being recorded in two
Oh, okay.
spots. So yeah, you should have gotten something, but
Maybe I clicked
um,
automatically.
yeah, it could be. It popped up on my screen. So next month we have Joe and Marie Rakosi talking about postcard photography. So they're going to talk about that. Part of it is not going to be recorded, just so everybody knows, due to some of the images and that they want to show. In August, we have a Phil, Atiyieh, Atayi, something like that. I haven't talked to him in person. He's going to talk about creating colorful abstract works of art from a single photograph. So that should be an interesting talk on his part. I'm going to start working on the fall schedule, September, October, November. Um, Again, anybody has any ideas for speakers, please let me know. They need to be under $150. So I'm pulling a lot of different speakers. I am trying to get somebody on to talk about the Platypod. It's a nice little device for shooting low to the ground. And I'm in contact with them. I'm in contact with On1, trying to find speakers that will talk about the On1 program. For some reason, they have a hard time sending me a list of people that are well qualified in talking about On1. So we're working with that, and we'll probably have somebody again on Luminar Neo coming up in the near future. I know I've got Hazel Meredith that can talk about it, and I keep looking for new people on that one. So we're gonna keep looking for speakers. Christmas, I will just put out a video like I normally do. But otherwise, September, October, November, we should have speakers going on. And so let's get started. Does anybody have any questions, problems, concerns before I start kicking off my stuff? Oh boy, I just hear
Well,
all these people.
actually, I sort of have one.
Okay.
With working at the youth showcase boards, you know, putting together the images that get printed on the boards, and then sending them out to a couple of individuals to be checked. I had one individual contact me and say that they couldn't print them, or you know, to print a letter size so they could look at it that way. And I'm wondering, they were getting a message about a subscription or something or other. I don't remember the whole thing, but I'm wondering, is Adobe kind of pushing people to use Acrobat as opposed to Acrobat Reader?
No. Well, they're always pushing to try to get them to purchase Acrobat, but nobody's going to purchase it because it's like $20 some a month.
Yeah.
But Acrobat Reader should be able to run it
That's what I'm
just
thinking.
fine. The
So,
only thing that it could be is they may not have an up-to-date Acrobat Reader.
Okay.
Well, there are
That
other
would be-
PDF readers too, so we could try another one.
Yeah.
There's tons of them out there that are free.
yeah, yeah. But when it all comes down to it, I think that's kind of the issue. I think on their computer, it's set up by default to go to Acrobat as opposed to Reader. You know, when you open a PDF, it wants to open in Acrobat for whatever reason. So I'm going to get together with them later today, and we're going to double check that and then see if we can redirect the preferred program or preferred application to Reader
Yeah.
and see if
I have
that
a-
makes a difference.
I have a comment on that. When I'm opening, first of all, Gary, do you have, or Jerry, I can't read it. Do you have a PC or Mac?
Both.
Oh, okay. So when I'm trying to open a photo, or I do a right click on it on the PC and I say open with, and then it'll give you the dialogue to always open, in the future, always open these kind of documents with this app. And I just wondered if you tried that.
I haven't tried that with their computer yet, but maybe that's the plan for a little later today when I get together with them.
Jerry, have you considered sending them a JPEG instead of a PDF?
The JPEG is much larger than the PDF. And one of the reasons, because I'm sending 8 files, and it's already, just about by today's standards, about a gigabyte is not too bad for 8 files. But we've never had this issue in the past, and they've changed computers. And I just suspect that the association for a PDF file needs to get looked at. That's all.
Yeah. Is
You
it a
know.
Windows computer
Yep.
for them?
Yep. And I'm not, and oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. But I think it's just an association issue. And I just gotta, have some time to sit down and look at it with them, and then we'll get it figured out. In the meantime, they were able to open the PDFs and print them without any problems by going through Microsoft Edge, by going to the web viewer.
Oh,
So,
okay.
we found a quick workaround, but I'm not the only one that have had issues like this. So,
No, I've
we're
heard
just
that
gonna
one
look into it.
before. And I don't know why it pops up that way, because they shouldn't have to. I mean, that's why Adobe has the reader now. Adobe doesn't make it easy to find the reader. That's the problem.
Yeah, but I think that's all it is file association in the app.
Yeah,
And once we get that
And-
figured out, okay,
yeah, that would, yeah, I would guess that's it. And to make sure they have the latest reader, because sometimes if you're turning it, into a PDF, you don't know what version of PDF it's using, and if they've got an old reader and it doesn't create a PDF that's readable by the old ones, then it tends to get to be a problem.
right. That backwards compatibility can be an
Yeah.
issue at times. Right, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I run into that once in a while too.
Because I start to discontinue some of the old PDF readers, so that it makes the file smaller. Otherwise, the file starts to get big because they got to create all the different versions for all the different PDF readers
Right.
for people who don't like to keep their programs up to date. But
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's the only thing, just in general, that I've run into recently.
Yeah.
And it was just in the past few days, so,
yeah, I've had that happen before where somebody's told me that, and I haven't figured out why it would say they needed to purchase Adobe Acrobat when they've got the free reader.
right.
And the reader can do quite a bit all by itself.
Right.
Hmm.
I don't have to worry about it on my Mac, but,
Yeah,
because I just
Yeah,
use preview.
yeah, that's what I do too. I
But-
actually don't use Adobe's Acrobat as my primary way to read PDFs anymore.
Right, but I do have Reader on my PC, and I can read the files just fine. and
Yeah,
Do what I need to with them if I need to use my PC, so. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
That's
my
weird.
only comment for the day.
yeah, that's a good one. Anybody else have anything?
Actually, I
Anybody in the
do.
group?
I'd be interested in
Go,
hearing
Joe.
from drone operators. I've been on the fence about purchasing a drone for photography. But I see in the last couple of weeks, Congress has passed a bill to ban DJI drones. There's restrictions and all, and I was just wondering if anybody who's a drone operator has seen that and has any comments
yeah.
about that.
Oh, yeah, it's been discussed a lot. They passed it through committee in March, and it's supposed to come out for a vote sometime in June. Even if they pass it, there's little agreement upon people on the effect of what it's gonna have. But DJI has recently changed they're changing their software so that you can't upload your data to their computers anymore in an attempt to, make Congress happy so that they don't ban them. And they've also, I don't know if it's a partnership or whatever with a company in Texas that is producing almost the exact same drone and selling them, but they're about 50% more. I think drones that are going for like $3,000 are going for like $5,000 from this company in Texas. But they are American made and wouldn't be subject to that. Not only are the DJI drones under this heading, there's the one that starts with an A. I forget the name off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but any of the Chinese drones
Yeah, I was going to say any Chinese drones are being targeted.
would come under that. So
Yeah,
if I was looking to upgrade my drone right now or to buy another one, I think I would hold off until this is settled and we really find out what's going to happen. I doubt that everyone's doubting that Congress will actually go through it because there's a lot of commercial drone operators in the country and first responders and everything that are up in arms about it because they've spent so much money on their fleets that it's going the repercussions of that, it's going to cost lives when they send in drones to to find people or to address emergency situations. So
Sure.
there's a lot of discussion going on it right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was listening to a video today on it, and it sounds more like they're banning it for state and local government entities
Well,
for
they
using
did that
it, not so
already.
much personal people.
No, they
Oh,
did
they've
that
done that.
already. That was another bill that passed earlier in the year.
Okay.
Where government agencies were not allowed to spend money on it, but this is for everyone. This
Oh,
would
this is
be,
for everyone. Okay,
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that one yet.
yeah,
So, and I only got halfway through the video that I was listening to from the Pilot Institute. So, because I sort of trust what they say, but
yeah, that
Yeah.
was several months ago. I think even late winter or maybe even during the winter when it was
Oh,
a
okay.
different bill. And then they introduced this one. And like I said, it came out of committee in March, and now it's still being discussed and it's going to come
Yeah.
up for a vote in Congress.
Yeah, I think
thought
I think the
it-
House already passed it. I think,
Not the full House.
oh, not the full House, just the committee? Okay. I thought the
From
House
what I
passed it.
understand, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was gonna go up to the Senate now, but maybe you're right. Okay.
You
Oh.
could be right. I know that something was coming up in June, and we're almost at the end of June. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe in the House of Representatives did pass it, and it now is up to whether the Senate passes it or not.
Mhm.
I have a friend that does search and rescue and use the drone. Whatever you do, do not buy one now. Wait until after this stuff is settled. And that he's getting the impression that none of the drones will be actually operational. But he's not quite sure. And he wants to buy another drone, but he's going to wait until all this stuff is settled.
Thanks.
And not many U.S. drones being made, and they're not cheap like
And they're
the
not as
Chinese
good.
ones. No, they're
DJI
not as
really
good.
does have a better product, the better
Yeah.
cameras. They teamed up with Hasselblad, and the drone that I have has a little Hasselblad camera on it, and it's a
Yeah.
really good camera.
Yeah. No, I think they've gone a little overboard on some of this stuff. There's a lot of honest Chinese companies over there. It's just the government that we don't like. So, well, we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, and I hear states are starting to ban more of it too. So it's going to get harder and harder, it sounds like, to fly. Yeah, that's got to be why Costco just dropped the price of the Mini 3 down to about $300, I think it was.
Oh,
And I'm going, wow, that's tempting. Now it's getting to be close enough to be a toy.
well, that may be because of the situation that people aren't buying them right now, so they're
Yeah, they're not
reducing the
buying them.
prices. If we know that DJI is going to be okay and survive, it might be a good time to buy a drone cost wise. I'm
Yeah.
sure you can get a good value, discount.
Yeah, it'd be
An expensive doorstop though, depending
Yeah.
on.
True. Very true.
Although they did say it'd be a couple of years before it probably goes into effect. So
I just don't think that they're going to do it because well, it's hard to say, but DJI has made moves to try to work with them, and there's nothing being uploaded to their servers anymore. Last time I upgraded my firmware, it automatically upgraded my data from my drone to the servers, but they're taking that button off the software and it won't automatically do that. And they're going to even get rid of their servers where they're storing that data. So they're trying to work around this so that they don't get banned. But
yeah.
with the political
Interesting.
situation, what it is right now, who knows?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're correct. It is the political.
Well, and unfortunately, politicians don't understand how most of this stuff works. So
It's really
Doesn't
sad and
help.
hard because when people are making livings, whether it's real estate or whatever, it's like pretty soon we won't be able to do anything.
yeah. Or you have to spend 4 times as much to get a drone to do it, and that makes it hard in itself.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments, things they've heard about? For Nikon people, I was going to mention that Backcountry has come out with a neat little custom control worksheet. If you wanted to be able to, for your Z8 or Z9, it's a really nice sheet that lets you plug in values and what you want it to do. It's downloadable and it's free. I've got it because I can never remember what custom controls I set on my camera. And I'm actually trying to figure out a way to do a card so I can remember what half of the custom controls are. Because I get to it and then I can't remember, well, what did I set this button for? And I need to come up with a small handheld card that I can carry with the camera to remember. And I bet everybody else has the same problems with their cameras. You start setting some of the custom controls and then trying to remember, what did I set that one at? I haven't used this button for a while.
That's a really
they've
cool
gotten-
feature that Nikon has, and maybe other manufacturers do too, where you can save all your settings to a card. So you can use like a really tiny memory card and just save the settings and keep it on file. Keep it
Yeah.
handy.
I actually keep my settings on my computer so that if I ever need it, I can just pull it up and move it back to a card again. That way, if I have to erase what's on the camera for custom controls and reset everything, I can at least go back to it to a known good working spot. But
That's kind of a neat feature. Can you take that card and if you have multiple cameras or get a newer camera, can you move it over? Or is it
you
specific to
can.
that camera model?
Yeah, as long as it's with the Nikon cameras and the same basic models, you can copy it over and reuse it. I was able to do that for my Z6 and Z7s, and when I got the Z6 and 7 IIs, I just copied all the stuff over, and everything was pretty much set up the way I wanted it. A few things don't always work, but
That's pretty cool. Last time I got my new Canon camera, which was several years ago, I spent 2 weeks setting with my old DSLR there, looking at what all the custom settings are and then doing that on my Canon, and it took a couple of weeks.
yeah. Nikon's made it somewhat easier, but it still has to sort of be the same model type. So it's not all of it works, but my problem is that Nikon has so many different custom settings that, I mean, his worksheet is just to write it down is two pages long, and it's pretty small type and double column. So there's a lot of controls that you can adjust on the Nikon stuff. And that's why it's getting so hard to remember what you set up. And I would imagine Canon and Sony are about the same way. So it can get really hard to keep track of. So something I just found for the Nikon people, for the Z8 and Z9, which the Z8's so popular, that's Steve Perry, right? Steve Perry. Steve Perry.
Steve Perry, and he also has a book for setting it up too.
Yeah.
Which is like 500 or 600 pages long. That's why there's so many choices.
Yeah. I think I've got it, and I still haven't gone through the whole book yet. But but it's a nice camera as well. So thanks, Jerry, for putting down Backcountry Gallery. He's got a lot of nice stuff. If anybody's interested in the Nikon Z6 III that's coming out, Steve Perry also just put out a new video on what that camera can do. Sort of like a little bit of slightly stripped down Z8, and for about $1,000, I think, less than what a Z8 would cost you. and yet it's got some pretty good features built into it. So Nikon's moving right along on updating all their cameras. Now we're waiting to see what the Z7 III will be like, and maybe if they bring out more updates on their crop sensors, be interesting to see. Anything else?
I just wanted to add, there's a guy named Henry Hudson, or Hudson Henry. I'm not sure which
Yeah.
one it is. He has an hour and a half video or hour and 20-minute video on the Z8 and setting it up, and he goes step by step. And
Yeah,
I've watched that a couple of times, and I think I have to look at it again, but because there is so much involved, but it's a really good one.
yeah,
Yeah, he's got
does-
two out there. There's one on the general setups that Joe's talking about, and then he's got one specific to the bank setups also
Right.
that focuses more in on those. So there's two really good ones out there.
yeah. I follow him quite a bit too. Got to get a list out again of all these different YouTube guys that are doing things. There are a lot of good ones out there, and there's a lot of mediocre ones out there. And sort of nice to start trying to list some of the better ones that are out there for some of this stuff. But yeah, I think it's Henry Hudson. I'm pretty sure. Anything else?
You know, I've got one, going back to the Z8 and this custom settings, it's just, I just reformatted my card, my memory card, and I was checking, and basically all the settings that I had before that are still saved in the camera. So I didn't reload the settings, and everything is still there. So I'm a little bit confused as to when you have to save settings and then reload them. I'm just confused on that.
Yeah, the settings stay no matter if you reformat the card. I think what Henry does, or there was somebody else that talked about doing it, he uses saving the settings as a way to reset everything back to the way he likes to start.
That's right.
I just save the settings on my computer, and then if I need to reset it back, then I just bring it from my computer, put it back on the card, and reload it. But it doesn't get erased unless you reset the camera itself, and then it gets reset.
Okay, I misunderstood that when I watched those videos. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes it didn't make sense. I know I had to listen to them a couple times, and I go, well, the Z6 and the Z7 didn't act that way, but yet I could always save those settings in case something would happen, or in case I had to reset everything in the camera. Then I could go back and reset them.
Okay.
But every time you gotta, when you reformat the card, then you do have to re-download the save the settings back onto the card right away. Otherwise, it's not on the card. And so,
I reformatted my card, and I go back in, and I've got all the settings I had before I reformatted the memory card.
Right. So
it's
he does
basically, if you want to get back to where your initial settings were, that's the value of saving the settings.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And the best thing is, if you want to save the settings, use a separate card, and that's it.
Course.
Don't save any other stuff on it. Use it as your, how can I say it, your get out of jail card.
Dedicated card. Yeah.
Yeah, your dedicated card. Yep.
Of course. Yeah.
And yeah, don't use a big card because you're only using a little bit of data.
Yeah, it's really a small file. That's why I just take, and when I do the cards over, when I copy the cards for Lightroom over, I then copy that file over and keep it on my computer just in case I need it later on. So not a big deal with it.
Speaking of files, I had an issue last night. I was trying to import some files off of my Z8, and those files were not recognized. It said in Lightroom, there was no preview there, no preview available. And then I went back to actually looking in Explorer to see the files themselves outside of Lightroom. And there were about 8 or 9 different files that just never downloaded to the computer for any reason at all. So it's like, well, let's see, is the card itself, the memory card, corrupt, or what the heck's going on? So memory cards usually don't fail, at least the good ones.
Yeah, the good ones generally don't. Do you know what files they were? What type?
Well,
They were just
like Nikon RAW files, yeah.
just
Native Nikon RAW.
okay, the full uncompressed RAW or partially compressed? Because that
I don't know.
that can-
I don't know. It's whatever's default on the camera.
well, that's usually the full uncompressed RAW then. Those
I've never
usually
had a
can
problem.
be
I mean, I've
read.
been shooting on this camera for over a year, and
Yeah.
I think
Brian-
I had it one
Brian,
other time.
You were doing
Okay.
this in Lightroom, you might have had that on the import, the checkbox check that not to bring in duplicates, and it might have been seeing those files as duplicates for some reason.
Yeah, that could be a possible. Yeah, that's
I don't know. I got to play with that one.
yeah. Check that one. Sometimes that does it. For some reason, it sees something that it thinks it's the same file, but actually isn't.
No, it happened the first time in. It happened the first time in.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I've had situations where I've stopped the import. I start it and then it brings in a few files. And, you know, especially if you start to do it and you say, no, oh, stop, wait, that's not where I wanted to put them. So you go back in and you put it in a different directory, but it still sees that it's already imported several of the files. I've had that happen before when you
No,
have
not
that
this case,
checkbox
no.
checked.
Not this case.
Yeah, and you have it just keep counting on the files, right? You don't have the file counter numbering system reset each time you're doing.
No.
You haven't gone over 10,000 files, have you? That's
In my
the other
computer,
thing
you
to
mean
check.
on that particular card?
No, on just importing Z8 files. If you hit once you break the 10,000 image mark, the file counter restarts back at 1, and it can then see that file as if it was the first file you downloaded, and would stop it from importing.
Well,
It's a weird situation.
Well, there
I
were
don't
some
think
files. There were some files before the ones that weren't read. There were some files read later too. So it was like it was
Yeah.
a group like right in the middle. And
Huh.
I don't think Lightroom uses the file names though, because I have, when I did some searches recently on my files, I found multiple copies in different dates of the same file for when my system
Yeah.
turned over.
They can. I've run into it because I've done 30,000-40,000 on one camera, and I would run into that problem where I had to make sure it wasn't going to a same folder that would see the other file, and then
Yeah,
it would cause a problem.
yeah, if it was the
But-
same folder, that's true.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm
I'll
not
do
sure
some
what
research
else.
and I'll report back next time. See if I
Yeah.
can find anything. Hopefully it's not the camera itself.
Yeah.
I'll
Sometimes
try a different memory card and just do
yeah.
a lot of bursts, and we'll do some testing. So
So Brian,
Yeah.
are you seeing that in the, oh, you're on a Mac, right? Or Windows?
Windows Explorer.
Windows, are you seeing those files that are missing in Explorer? Are you looking on the camera or are you looking on your hard drive? Are
Windows
you,
Explorer's on it's on the computer.
so you import from your camera onto the computer and then go into Lightroom and import them? Is that
I
correct?
try it both ways. You know,
Here's a quick
first I
question.
tried Lightroom, and then I tried copying the files over to my my hard drive directly, and then I tried to copy them in from there. And the same problem happened both cases.
Really?
Here's a quick question. The files that are corrupt, can you actually view those pictures in your camera? Does
I
it
didn't go
pop?
back to try that. I didn't go back to try that. That's a good question.
Because I'm kind of curious to see if it shows up in your camera.
That's a good
Yeah.
question. I don't remember if I did that. Probably not.
Hmm.
It was late at night, and I just got back from a trip. But I just want to see my photos.
Yeah, yeah,
Testing to be
No.
continued. I'll give you an update. Okay. Thanks.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see. You never know.
Oh, Hopefully
We
it's
run
not
into a
bad.
lot of strange things sometimes.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything?
Jeff, can I give a little more information about the postcard program next
Sure.
month? My wife and I are
Sure.
presenting. You mentioned that it's partially not going to be allowed to be recorded, and that's my part. The presentation is actually two parts. I start off by with my part of the program talking about the rich history of postcards, the backstory of
Okay.
postcards in the Midwest and particularly in Chicago area. We go back all the way to the beginning, but I show a whole bunch of images that are not mine. These are postcards off the internet that belong to other people and I don't have the rights to. So my
Sure.
part can't be recorded. But my wife Marie is then going to present how to create postcards. And the difference here is with a postcard, it's not just a pretty picture. You want a high impact picture, but how to apply text to a postcard and to create stylized text and how to have montages and collages, multiple images on a postcard. And that is recordable. And she's going to go into detail on how to apply text.
Okay.
Now, we
Great.
presented this program about a dozen times at different clubs. And actually, we presented it to Tulsa, to their equivalent of CACA or WACO, and they actually started a postcard competition after they saw our presentation. And Marie and I run the postcard competition for CACA. We've done that for 13 years, and that's really a popular competition. So perhaps WACO might someday decide or consider a postcard competition for themselves.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. That's why I was interested in it. So we might just try to figure out some way we can get back into prints in a simple way. So no, great. That helps. I think that explains it better. So okay, well, if there's nothing else, let me get myself going here. Let's see, it's got to be that one.
When you're doing that, I just thought I'd comment about when I was up at Door County and saw Joan Marie's two prints up at was it at Anderson's, the display area.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you saw
Your
them.
two images there, especially your was that a winter coyote or what was that? That was amazing.
Yeah, the winter coyote.
Winter
I just
coyote.
got
That
word
was
that
an
it was-
amazing shot.
Oh, thank you so much. I just got word that it was sold.
Wow.
So they said they're sending me a check.
Wow. How close were you to that coyote?
Actually, pretty far away. I think I used the 300 millimeter, 18 to 300 millimeter Nikon, but it's got the 1.5 crop factor is APC, so it would be 450. But it was still a small. We were probably a football field away from this thing, so it was small within the total frame. But I cropped it and then I used gigapixel, Topaz gigapixel, and upped the number of pixels with the interpolation, and it came out. I was really kind of astounded that it came out that good.
Great shot.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Okay, well, for everybody that uses Lightroom, they've had a number of new updates, and I'm going to go through some of them, at least the ones that I use the most. And let's jump into the first one, which is their early release of the remove tool. I think we'll start there because that's probably the most interesting of the ones. Now, it is early release, so it's definitely not finished. It's got a long ways to go. If you heard us talking a little bit about it before the show started, it's not as good as Photoshop yet for the remove tool, but it's got some interesting features. It's still useful. This is the dialog window that it comes with. Basically, you still have the healing brush and the clone tool. It's pretty much taken the place of the spot healing that they had. And you've got its generative AI that you can turn on and off. If you uncheck these, it's basically going back to this basic remove tool that you had. And if you go to the generative AI, it actually will use Adobe's computers to access and do the removal. I found that it works on a lot of things, but it's definitely not perfect. I do like that it has an object aware part, so that if you start to paint over, say I wanted to get rid of this leaf here, and you can basically make a rough selection of it. And then it will analyze it and it will try to select it. You have an add and subtract so that you can clean up. And it's a pretty easy one. You can just go in there and clean up stuff where you don't want it to work. I'm using my mouse, so I'm a little shaky this morning. A lot of times I will use a pen tool. You do have to get it sort of close, but the nice part is you can switch back and forth between the add and subtract. So if you, like with I am this morning, a little shakier, I can go back and add. And then when you're happy with it, you just hit apply. And now it's going up to Adobe's cloud to process it. And then it brings it back. And you can see it does a fairly decent job on simple items. I will use it for stuff like this in the background where I want to just get rid of something that just stands out too much for me. And generally, I will use the generative remove, and it will do a good job. Now, if I go to, I'll show you where it doesn't work well, if I can find it here.
Jeff, can I ask a quick question? When you
Sure.
do that, when you do that, is the only way to undo it is to go back to the history and undo it, or does it store it
Yeah.
like the other layers in Lightroom?
You have to basically do an undo with it. Yeah, there isn't, you basically have to go back in history and back up a step.
Yeah. One thing I
So-
like about doing that in Photoshop is that I always do those kind of changes, especially like that leaf that you did. I do it on another layer so I can turn that layer on and off or fade
Well,
it.
yeah, actually, you can delete it. I should take that back. You can delete it and then start over again. It's the same as how all three tools work that way. It's a different one that doesn't do it where you have to back up. So I take that back. You can actually hit delete and then try it again.
So you can go back and pick it later if you've got a
Yeah,
whole bunch of them
yeah,
on.
you can go back and pick it up later. Now, where'd that image go that I was trying? I had a was trying to get rid of, yeah, I don't care about that. I hate when I hit those buttons. Well, all right, well, we'll use this one. So like back here is where I found it didn't work real well. It basically, sometimes if you have a person in it, one of the things I noticed is it picks out the person and replaces the person. I thought I had a better image where I just wanted to remove the person. And now watch this work. Last time I tried this, it didn't do a good job. Because I'm trying to do stuff from, say, a World War II event where I didn't want people. Now this time it worked. So you never know. But you could see it did a pretty decent job at getting rid of that car back there. And I did lose the mirror, which I suppose if I got in there a little pickier, I could get it. But yeah, and if you wanted to get rid of it, you can come back later and just highlight, you know, you can see how it looks. If I, come on. If I click on it again, I can highlight it and then hit delete and it can bring it right back. So that part still works. What I noticed is with people in it, if you tried to delete with people, a lot of times it just replaced a person. And I guess I didn't save that one. But if I was to, say, try to get rid of this person here, come on. Takes a while for it to sometimes work. This does take quite a bit of computer power as well. But the part that I noticed is it doesn't always replace with getting rid of something. It replaces it with something that's the like. All right, come on. Now this time, of course, it did just what I wanted it to do, which was to get rid of the person. And it actually seemed to do a pretty decent job of it. So sometimes it works, other than I had fooled with the background. And I'm noticing that there are steps that you need to follow to make things work better. Because I had blurred out this background, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And you can see where it replaced the person, that background is staying sharp. So I would start, you sort of need to figure out steps of which way to go. And before you would blur the background out, you might want to remove that person first, then do the blurring of the background. Otherwise, you get this where you would have to fool around with it some more to get this part of the background to blur. But it works, but it's still a hit and miss. Come on. And sometimes trying to get to that spot to bring it back or get rid of it. Okay, where'd it go? There he is. So, and actually it does a nice job. Where it doesn't do good is if you have a person's face. I've had mediocre luck with faces, and let me show you, like here, it works pretty decent on the soldier itself if you're getting rid of this pipe. but come on. All right, easier if I turn it off. And maybe this time you can see that it doesn't do a real good job on creating a face. So that they haven't gotten down too well yet. The rest of the body came out pretty good with the shirt and the pants. You really couldn't tell too much. Not quite sure. Oh, yeah, it looks like I lost part of his hand, because the pipe must have been there somewhere. So 1, 2, 3, 4, well, it's 5 fingers at least. So you can tell that it's not perfect yet for certain things, but you know, getting rid of the pipe, and I don't see where the lid, oh, there it is. So you could see I actually probably should have, I got a little too far over on that side, but so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'd say it's about 70% good and about 30% bad. But if you turn the generative AI off and you do things in sections, now it's working more like the regular heel brush. It's just that you would have to, this is where I would probably end up going into Photoshop and trying to do it, and trying to bring a face in from some other person that I could use to fix it up. So there are still times where it's not going to work well. Any questions with that? Again, it is an early access, so it's got a ways to go, but it's definitely, they're headed in the right direction, but there's still times that you need to go into Photoshop with it. Now let's go into the lens blur. Let's see. Come on. It's not the image I want, because I think it was that one. And of course, the computer has to work slow. So let me reset this image. So I found this image was pretty good for doing a little bit of what I like to do with the new lens blur. Now the lens blur has come out of early access and has gone into a regular tool. And now would be the time that if I was going to get rid of this guy, I would do this first before I would fool with the lens blur. Actually, I'm curious to see how this will work, if I can do this without messing it up. It's not too bad. Looks like I got all of them. What's nice is if you hit the refine, you can, you know, clean it up a little bit. Because if you can get rid of some of that mask so that it's pretty close, it just gives it a little less problems. But it really
looks like you need a little smaller brush, which is one of the things that I prefer about Photoshop. You can make your brush larger and smaller with the bracket keys here too, but it's harder than in Photoshop to adjust the size of your brush.
Yeah, you can. I can change it just with the bracket keys, and I can get pretty small. My problem is I normally use a pen, and the pen doesn't work good when I'm trying to do these demos, so I'm using a trackball. And I would be a lot more careful. Now this time it didn't do a very good job. It did a better job the time before. So I'm just going to delete it and we'll just go on. This is rather a tough one to do, but it would be nice if I could get it to work right. This would be one that I may take into Photoshop and get rid of this guy because I'm not real thrilled. He stepped right in front as I was taking the shot. But going into the lens blur.
I wonder if the one that did well, you have more detail around his shoulders and head here before you.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, you're right. That might be it. I'm going to have to play around with it and see how I can get that lens blur then to work for where he was cut out, because that's the one area it's not doing a good job with. But the lens blur is working pretty well. You click the visualize depth and it creates a depth map. And then you can adjust this bar, and anything that's white is what's going to be kept sharp. And anything that's colored or dark is not. You can adjust by adjusting the ends. Now, I will say this does seem to take a lot of computer power. And I'm running a pretty strong Mac Mini or a Mac Pro. Actually, it's a Studio Ultra, and and I still am getting the bars, the spinning beach ball for me. But what's nice is you can adjust this to get just the areas you'd like in focus. And you can bring actually the front.
Is this still early release?
Nope, this is now a full version.
Because when I played with it when it was really first out with the early release, it was so intensive it crashed my Lightroom.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything real bad for me. It has you've got buttons for what you want in focus, which these guys are already pretty much in focus. But I would like this tree to be more in focus, so I can go over that, and the tents. Now I might be doing too much. It sometimes takes a while for it to kick in. And you can see but like here, I don't want that in focus, and you could see it getting darker, so that part is working a little better.
That color code is a neat feature.
So it works pretty decent. And then you adjust the blur amount, and you could see where it worked well, where it isn't. I mean, I am going to crop this image somewhat, but you could see here, I want this to be blurred, these tents back here to be blurred. Come on, beach ball. So I will make sure that they get darker yet. And you could see it just gets, as you brush over it. Now I got to watch because this man's head, I want to make sure I keep sharp. But it does take a lot of processing power because it is doing this right on the computer. So I want to make sure. So it can sometimes, and right now part of the problem is I'm running Zoom and doing this. But now you could see that background gets nice and out of focus. The soldiers are sharp. The tents are a little bit out of focus, but not a lot, which is really what I sort of wanted. And then I would, of course, end up cropping down a little bit actually for this stuff.
Jeff,
Yep.
Jim Karosky like to be a panelist. There's a few things he'd like to add to your
Okay.
tweaking.
Yeah, unfortunately I can't add them right now because I'm in screen sharing. I'll see about getting them in a minute. So there's sort of the final image. The one that I had was actually better because I spent more time on this background area, which
Yeah, those
I
tents in the background are distracting.
yeah, and that's why I wanted to get them as out of focus as I could, and it looks like I'd have to work on that some more here. And I actually did. I spent a lot more time making sure that these these tents or canopies were completely out of focus, just like this is here.
Might be better just trying to delete them.
I tried deleting them, and that's where the remove tool does not do a good job.
Okay.
I could sort of show you just to give you an idea, because yeah, I thought it'd be great if we could just do this
Yeah.
and turn it into a green background.
Jeff, how about using content aware to remove that, just to match it up with the trees in the background? Or
Yeah, and I found what the easiest to do was to actually go in and I mean it did okay here, but then it messed up a little bit in here. I ended up really, it was better when I took it into Photoshop and actually did it, because the remove tool just doesn't do it too well. The content aware fill, if I turned off the generative part, might actually help some.
Well, you just try to
But you-
shoot it again next year, with a better.
Yeah. Oh, that's the trouble. Some of the stuff there, yeah, it's hard. It'll be easier just to clean. I'll end up cleaning it up more in Photoshop.
Yeah.
Jeff, when you were in the blur tool, there were 5 different boxes there. What are those do?
Let me get out of this part.
Yeah, those 5 boxes there where you got one highlight.
Yeah, these are different types of blur. This is the normal one. This one gets sort of a it gives you a circle with a dot in the center of it. I'm not sure with this one if it's going to actually show up or not. Usually you see it on stuff like this here. It would be more, well, here is the circles with the dots up in here where you get the highlights. So they're just different types of blur. And the computer's having a hard time with some of this. So you can see how those dots change in the background in the sky area with the tree leaves as I click on it. Normally it goes a lot quicker than, but trying to run a zoom at the same time. Here you can see how that looks now with that particular one. This one will get you a lot more of the circle with it. I'm running, yeah, there we go. So you can see the circles with the dark in the center. This is another type of blur. So you can see which blur works the best for you.
That's actually a neat feature. You can, even better than blurring in Photoshop, you'd have to go in and find the different types of blur, and it would be more
Right.
complicated.
So, and actually I sort of like that one. Works pretty nice, except for what it does here with when I got rid of the umbrellas. So I'm not sure. There's got to be a better order for doing some of this stuff. So it's got a little bit to go, but the blur tool definitely works pretty decent. I'm not sure. Can I go back? Let me go back here. Just see if I can. Yeah, if I go back to here. Go back in the history. That actually worked pretty decent when I originally had done it. These I would probably still just darken down, and I'd be able to live with it as well. But you could see I got the blur here a lot better on this version than I had on the other. And it makes these soldiers stand out quite a bit more with it. So
What's the sign to the nutmeg? Is that the spice tent, or?
I'm actually not sure. Maybe here I can now get to Jim. Yeah, it just was a sign that pointed to, yeah, this was a whole lineup of soldiers and that. It could have been maybe what they called the outfit. I'm not sure.
Maybe. It's a nice little
it-
addition to the story, though.
Yeah, it was a interesting day. I wish I could have spent more time at World War II event. It was held at Old Falls Village, and they had a lot of reenactors. They had both the German and the American and the English forces, and it had a lot of neat little vignettes. The only hard part is it's a 17-acre park, and you get a lot of this junk in the background. And I actually plan on going into these and specifically getting rid of a lot of this junk. But I needed to get some of this up onto a website real quick. So I left this in and just let it get blurred. But I will come back later and actually work on it some more. So, so that's the lens blur tool. They've improved it a little bit more. Took it off of early access. You can actually adjust the focus range for people if you wanted, or you can target it as well. I find that using this box here works for me the easiest to target and adjust what's going to be in focus and what isn't in focus. And you just need to turn on the visualize depth so you can see whatever's inside this box is what will be in focus. And what's outside of it will be out of focus. So you can adjust that just by adjusting it by the handles. And if you click on it, you can actually see whatever's white's going to be in focus. And as it goes to a darker color, it's slowly going to be turned out of focus. So you've got quite a bit of control with it. And you could see, you know, you need to just paint on these with the blur tool to get it even more. They'll go darker yet, and then that helps you get them a little bit more out of focus. So that's the blur tool. And like I said, it's pretty decent. I use it for flowers, more flowers. I have used it for buildings. Let's see if I can show you. I think it's this one here. I used it with this building down in the Smokies, which really gets you to focus on the building, although for me, it makes it look almost like it's a toy model now with the background as out of focus as I made it. This is how it looked originally before I started working on it. So you can see quite a bit of difference with the blurred background, and then of course I did a bunch of masking. The masking tools have stayed pretty much the same, but they really work pretty well. So you're able to darken the background and, you know, bring up your foreground pretty easily. So the masking tool is you can see I've got this one is for my background. And if I turned it off the background, actually, I'm sorry, that one's the building. I should know that. So you can see how I brightened or darkened the building. And then here's the background, where I tend to darken the background to make it go away a little bit more. And then blurring the background helped as well.
Jeff, I would just
So-
want to mention, I know you mentioned brushes before, but like looking at this picture on the left side of the house, there is an area which is blurred, which I presume you would not want blurred. You could paint that out very easily and make that the way the rest of the house looks. And those paintbrushes are very powerful and do a really good job of adding in things like the little ruffles you had on the tents of the World War II people.
Right.
And very easy to blend in the same amount of blur in different areas by using those brushes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There's a little bit of stuff here that I probably need to fool with.
And I just want to mention one other thing I think most people know that when you do make a selection and you bring something in, you get three choices. And it's easy to forget that there are three choices because you have to spot that little section in the middle there and say section one, or look at selection one, selection two, selection three, and then you pick the one you like the best of those three, or regenerate it again and look at the next three.
Right. Yeah. And I always wonder why some days I can spot it and other days I couldn't. Actually, I don't know if they do that for the Lightroom version. I know for the Photoshop version they do.
What's that, taking the blur changing?
No, the generative part of going from 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, it's in. I'd have to look. It's right in the middle of that window, and you'll see it says
that's
2 and 3. It's got a little arrow pointing one way or the other. I'd have to open it to look at it, but let me take a look.
Let me take a look here. Come on. Yeah, part of it is my computer's running nice and slow now with trying to do all this stuff. Oh yeah, here it is. I thought there was a spot for, so
It
here's
says
1,
variations, and then it says refresh if you
2,
like those 3. Right.
yeah, and 3. Although for these, it doesn't change it a whole lot. But yeah, you do get 3 choices, that's right. And then if you want to refresh it, you get 6 choices or more. Yeah, that's a good one. I forgot to point that one out. So I get mixed up on what's in one version over another these days too. But it works. Actually, it does a nice job. Gets rid of, although I like this rock, I'm not gonna get rid of that one. But so yeah, the remove tool does a decent job. It just doesn't do a good job with people yet. Oh, and one other little thing that they added. When you're in the library mode, if you bring up your metadata part, they now have in metadata attributes, actually it's in, you can now filter for exported images, so that if you wanted to see which images you've exported, you can click on exported and it will show you which images you have exported out, or which ones you haven't exported out. So that, I'm not sure how handy that would be, but if you ever needed to know that, you can filter by exported or non-exported images. That's one of the other features in Lightroom. So,
Jeff, one other thing maybe to point out, just in case people have missed this, because it could really screw up when somebody had asked before, can you get rid of what you did in your different changes when you're doing generative AI? In that same panel, right where you had the choices to see 1, 2, and 3, there's a thing that says tool overlay. And if you have that in the never mode, you will never see what you did to change the photo. No markers are left behind so that you could click on
Right.
and move it. So you either need to put that in auto or always. There's different reasons for each one, but there's 4 choices there, just in case you ever get there and you say, I don't see anything that I can click on and erase. Just be sure either put it in auto, or if you put always, you will always see every marker that you did in that panel.
yeah, good point. Some of that stuff I
Roger
forget
is
about.
asking a question about whether it's available if you're not connected to the internet. And so generative fill would not be available. I've never tried that. I think I might play around by turning my internet off one day while I'm in the middle of a session and see what kind of errors you get.
Yeah, you could try. Yeah, it's not going to work because it does need to go to the internet. So there are a lot of people that seem to get worried about some of that, but I don't have a problem with Adobe working on my images and looking at it, and because I'll take the time-saving benefits that you get from it doing that. So that's pretty much most of the newest stuff from Lightroom. The rest has been pretty much brought into Photoshop. They've done more, so I'm going to take this image in to Photoshop to show a couple of things. Some of this stuff, let's see. Oh, I hate these things. Go away, go away. All right. Sometimes Nick's stuff works and sometimes it doesn't. So we've talked about some of this. One of the nice features is if you needed to expand your image, you can do that using a generative fill. And of course, this does need to go to the internet, but you can expand out, and it does a pretty decent job with it. So you can see here it was here's what I needed to fill. It's pretty sharp. You can tell it's hard zoomed in here to see the edge. And let's see if I turn it off again. You can see a little bit that it's not quite as sharp as it was, but you do get 3 choices. They all work sort of nice. There is, you can label it good, poor, or report it. Now, there's supposed to be an upscale. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing an upscale on that part. There usually is a little thing here that you can click to actually upscale it to twice the resolution. On this particular image, you really don't need to. Now let's go back to full size, because most of it's on the edges, and you really can't tell unless you were, and you really can't tell unless you were going to really go to printing it. So you can see here that you really can't tell that much of a difference. And I can regenerate it if I want to get more adjustments. But I'm finding this really nice. I have a picture frame that's a video picture frame where it takes a specific format size to fill the frame. And it's basically a 16:9. And so I can actually, and I leave my crop set for 16:9, and I can then readjust it. And I cannot tell where I, put it in. But you get all the different adjustments and choices that you want. So that part is working really nice. So it's something that I tend to use, especially for some of my commercial work, where I'm shooting stuff for different groups where I need to just expand an image that they sent me. It works pretty well that way. The other thing, and this is more playing around, although it can be handy. They've got generative fill now, and if I wanted to add, say, a rabbit to my image. Now, of course, you're not going to use this for competition type stuff, but I do stuff in Photoshop for other reasons. I wouldn't be adding a rabbit to this image, but you do have and it does a halfway decent job. Now, what
Jeff,
I probably should have.
Can you introduce your own object in there? I heard where they were working towards that. So if I have a picture of a rabbit, could I put my picture of a rabbit? And I have lots of pictures of rabbits, by the way. I'd be happy to send you some. I'd be happy to send you a rabbit, actually. I've got 4 rabbits I'd love to send you.
Yeah, yeah, there is a way to do a reference image.
Yeah. I haven't tried that. Show it if you can show
yeah,
us if you're
and
familiar with
I
it.
gotta admit, I haven't tried it myself. I would really like just a plain gray rabbit like we have, but is that rabbit playing with something? Gee whiz. But it's got it laying on that rock pretty darn well. Now, let me think a second. Let's see. Is it in here?
I think I saw it as an option, maybe.
Yeah, there is an option for it.
Go to,
Um, is it in? No, it's not in the generate part. Oh, I was going to look that up and I didn't get to it. And I should have done that.
You closed down your variations, in the bottom of that properties window. You
Yeah.
generated 3 more, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, I've got something like 9 of them now. I was looking for a plain gray rabbit, but I'm just trying to think how to add the I don't remember how to do it.
Jeff, I think you have to go into Firefly. And in the Firefly, that's where you can give little graphics and photos as suggestions.
Yeah.
But I think that's you have to leave here and you'd go into Firefly and put your stuff in there.
Well, they were supposed to have added it to Photoshop.
Yeah, I've heard
I
they
had-
added Firefly in Photoshop.
Yeah, Firefly is actually in Photoshop. But what's nice is they do have, you know, they got the rasterize.
Would that be a plugin?
No, it's not a plugin. It's part of, and it's something I did do it with Firefly. Jim's right on that part that you could do it, but I was also told you could do it in Photoshop. And Firefly 3 is actually added to Photoshop these days. Let's see, it could be. And one thing I will say in their Discover tab, which is under their little magnifying glass, they've got a lot of nice stuff that you can learn about all the different things. They've got the adjustment tool brush is something new. Photoshop on the web. Generative fill and expand. Now it's powered by Firefly 3 model. Yeah, it could be maybe. Oh, you know what? I think that's in beta yet. And I'm working on the regular version. So that could be in beta where you can actually add the image. I bet you that's what it's in. I get mixed up too on what's in beta and what is in the regular version. And I sort of stopped using the beta because create entire images from scratch. Yeah, and I think you can, yeah, here's where you can use a reference image to make that image then fit here. So, all right, well, I can do that. We can try that once. I don't need to save the rabbit. Let's see, if I do this and edit in, I've got to start that first. Nice part is you can run both Photoshop and Photoshop Beta. Okay, it is going. The trick is to go from Lightroom to Photoshop. Yeah, here, Model 3, you've got a few more things that you can end up doing. Here's where the reference image comes in, where you can select a reference image and then it will put it in.
But that's not your own image.
No, it can be your own image.
Okay.
So it's just what it is it's in, let's go to that and we'll use some of their stuff. Just because I don't have everything I need to be able to demo that. I didn't think about it. Let's download the reference image. I think I can. Oh, there it is. Save image to download. Okay. I don't want to spend time updating now. Okay, so if we take the lasso, and we select and then I believe it's this part here. Right, and generative fill. And then reference image. So I have that in my downloads. Oh, of course. Try the other one that I got there. Oops, it's badges. Did those not download decent? All right, let's do it this way. Maybe this isn't going to work great, but so I used a colored badge that I have. We'll see what it ends up doing here because I've got a pretty strange selection, but well, that was different. That's not exactly what I thought it was going to do at all, but
Made an interesting photo.
yeah.
Instead of putting the badge on the back, it put the person on the badge.
Yeah, I must have done a really bad selection.
fun to play
So,
with though.
yeah, it's gonna make things interesting. I think part of it was I just did a really poor selection, and let's see if I just back it up here. Oh yeah, I see what it did.
Oh,
Let's see.
selected
It
outside.
it selected everything except for the backpack. So if I just selected the backpack, generative fill, reference image, choose. For some reason, so yeah, if you had like a different colored backpack, and that's what I tried to download from their website, but for some reason it's not downloading right.
Well,
Is
the
it-
challenge would be to isolate her and put her onto that Smoky Mountains stream thing sitting on a rock. That'd be interesting to try to do.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, it- you probably couldn't download the backpack because you had the whole picture selected except the backpack.
Yeah, well, and I had the backpack was what it did is it took me to Adobe's help website where it downloaded it, but for some reason the JPEG that it downloaded did not come out right. So, but you could see here that that tag, it did a lot of weird stuff to that tag. Changed all the wording, but it turned the backpack into what I basically had, which was a name tag that I was working on for my group. But you could, you know, if you had a copy of a backpack that you wanted to use, it would then make it fit in there a little bit better. So it's got possibilities. You just have to think about it. I wonder if I could do, if I selected this building here, man,
Your layer is on the
yeah,
back
yeah,
part.
that's your, thank you. I'm wondering if I could, yeah, do that. Generative fill. And you could see this is the image I'm using to fill with. It would be neat if that would just then fill up that building.
That would be
Does,
something though that I think you'd use a composite image instead of a generative fill. If you
yeah,
wanted that badge on that building.
yeah. I do it a lot different ways, but it's got some interesting ideas. I don't know why it's not just taking that badge in some ways. It's doing a lot of different things to it. So I'd have to play around with it a lot more, but that is some of the new stuff.
It looked like one of the choices was trying to use the texture that was actually in the building itself.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if you have a reference image, I know in Firefly you can do a little bit more with it. But this again, this is the beta version of Photoshop, so it is a little different. It's not finalized yet. Let's see. So let's move on to some of the other stuff that they've done. All right. see if I can see now. One thing that if you do filter stuff, one thing you got to remember to do when you're done is hit none so that you don't lose everything. We're gonna go with this one. And some of their neural filters work pretty decent for old-time photos. And they have a colorize, which actually isn't all that new, but it really does a pretty decent job for taking an old photo. This is what used to be the mill in downtown Menominee Falls. This is the dam area, and this was the mill building before. At one time that used to be a bank, now it's a bunch of condos. But that's really, for a one button click, pretty amazing for adding color that's probably pretty close to what it should be. It really looks like a nice colorized photo. So that was one thing that I thought I'd show everybody in case you wanted to take some of the old black and whites and improve on it. And it's really one click and you're done. I mean, I would certainly spend some time in cleaning up the sky. But the one that I found that was somewhat interesting, let's see if I can take this shot. I gotta do the original here. So if I start with the original, this was the original, and you could see it had a crack here. Where'd my cursor go? Come on. Get back to there. So it had a crack in here, and I just took it basically into the, oops, it helps if I'm on the right one, and go into filter, neural filters, and they have a photo restore, which you do have to download. And I couldn't find many where I had a lot of cracked pictures. Most of my cracked ones I've already fixed. This was the best one that I had, and actually the crack is not that drastic.
You know, Jeff, one of the things that I think we're going to have to be aware of with this technology is that some of these old pictures of actual people are changed very subtly. I took some old family photos from 100 years ago and put them, there's a couple of websites that will sharpen and make the people in the photos look like they're brand new photos. And I actually zoomed into the photo afterwards and looked at what they actually did. And there's little changes in the teeth, and there's some little changes in the shape of the nose. It's very subtle, but I don't think we need to be careful that we're actually misrepresenting people from the past.
Yeah. No, what's nice is the scratch reduction works pretty decent. But it can do some stuff here with like the crack was right along the lip here. You can sort of see where it was, and I had reduced it already, and this is trying to do it. I mean, you do have to watch here where you do the enhance the face, does exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And photo enhancement. So a lot of that you can turn down. Now, the nice part that I did find is the remove tool works nice for fixing up like the edges of the photo. And sometimes I would use the remove tool to actually hide the crack better. Actually, I think this is one way to do it where you don't want to take a lot of time, and it works pretty decent. I actually just use the remove tool here, and you can see that it removed it. Only thing I'm not happy about is the lips here, which was sort of messed up as it was. And then I fixed the bottom with the remove tool just to make it a more square picture. Now, it didn't do a good job when I went to the neural filters and did the colorize. I was hoping this would be a, oops. And then if you pick the wrong layer and don't do, that's why I had a merged layer here. I like the colorize, but it doesn't always work. Turn it on and it helps. It didn't do bad on his face, but the uniform, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be blue. I think it
Looks
is.
like you have the ability to adjust the colors down there though, and maybe take out some of that orange, but it might affect the face too.
Yeah, it's got an auto color range, and then the adjustment part, you can go retro colors, like if I go retro red, it doesn't really, you don't have enough control yet of it.
Oh, that's just a saturation slider below there, huh?
Yeah, and that's just saturation below. So there's not
give you color sliders like they do on the black and white.
No,
When you
they
convert to
don't.
black and white.
At least not that I could get to. Sometimes, let's see, I am a little off. Maybe I'm missing us. Let's see if I missed something. Maybe I did. Well, yeah, they do have some, but like it doesn't do cyan to red. I couldn't get it to do a whole lot. And I go, well, it doesn't help the blotchiness of why it picks some. Because it would be nice to get all this. Now, I think I could probably do it just by painting over it in the color that I'd want. You can actually output it as a overlay here so that you could,
Mask it.
adjust it. But that's one of the things that it was sort of nice, is that you can colorize some of these old photos, but yeah, it still has some work that it needs to be done on it. But thought, it should show people that you can sort of colorize some. Like I said, scenery pictures, it worked pretty decent. So, I mean, I would use it for that. I mean, that change isn't too bad and would be nice. It'd be interesting to see. I'm curious now, just because I can. And that does a pretty decent job of catching what it should look like. This is Main Street in Menominee Falls. Actually, here's where the bank is, where that mill was on the sugar beet factory was before. But that's pretty true to color. And I don't know if this is the right color. I'm not that old, but does a decent enough job for colorizing. So, oh, I gotta hit OK. So I thought might as well show that so you can see what the colorizing does, and the fixing of cracked photos can be a lot easier, although the remove tool might work really well for that. This was a pretty big file, so it's going to take a little bit of time. So while it's saving that one, let's see, we were going to go to now, what was I going to try next here? I did that. I want to show that. I really need to process that a little bit more. Let's just hit auto. But sometimes you do want to change, and I want to show the and when I go too fast, where did it go? I know I've got it. It usually gets collapsed. I want lens blur. Come on. There it is.
There it is.
I hate it when it gets collapsed. But on portraits like this is where the lens blur is nice. Now, I've got the background pretty well blurred, but I really would like to have it blurred some more. So, and you could see it's pretty much right about there is what I want. And then let's just crank her up. Visualize. Let's see if that, yeah, that works pretty decent. But say you wanted to change the background as well. You can do that pretty easy in Photoshop. And I'm just going to warm her up because it was a lot warmer of an evening. So let's go into Photoshop. Now, what's nice is you can click and just hit remove background. And it does a pretty decent job of removing the background, although it did get rid of the fence. But you can actually take a brush and just change that to a white background and just paint the brush fence back in, because otherwise it wouldn't really look quite right. But the nice part is if you create a blank background, put it below her, and now I don't want to remove. All I want to do is generate. I'm stuck in, oh, I'm in the brush. Yeah, I didn't think. Come on. I just want to. I should be able to just generate a background. For some reason. Let's try editing a background. This works just as well. So, how about cityscape just for the fun of it? But this is a nice way that you could change the background to whatever you'd want. Would work better. Well, actually, you could have a viney fence with a cityscape background, and that's not too bad for different versions. And then here's where you can upscale that. You can see the little upscale button. That will upscale the quality of that background. It enhances the detail. It basically doubles the strength of it. But it can be, say you just wanted a multi-brown. Just see if we can throw like a background cloth behind her with some stuff in front of her. Oh, that's interesting. Look.
Could you
But-
put a vineyard behind her?
Sure. Yeah, that would be a good one. See, that's the next thing that we're going to have to start thinking about. Right, I guess grape would be redundant, but that's starting to be the whole thing of, you know, what do you need to make your portrait, say a portrait of this person, if you had a cruddy background, you know, what could you do? And if I was shooting a portrait and that person would like it in something more than what I had, this is a way that you could actually do it. I mean, it certainly doesn't work for competitions, but this is actually pretty good here. I mean, the sun was about where you can see from the back of her head. This would actually work pretty decent. I'd sort of like the background to be a little more blurred, but you could see that it's got its uses. Now, something else that they have added, they did add to the graduated filter. Just while I've got this shot up, let's see if I go into some of just the colored ones. Just, it's not going to help it a lot, but that's probably not going to be too bad. If I was going to add a graduated filter, what they've added that's nice is you now can control it by just adjusting this spot here. Now, my computer seems to be running really slow, but this would adjust how much the gradient shows. And I'm not sure why it's not showing more. Come on. Boy, and I tell you. Maybe if I do it this way more, you can see it better. This should be moving that center point farther down. For some reason, it's not. But you can, with this adjustment here, actually move it back and forth. And I would actually, I wouldn't leave it as normal. I would probably do a lighten or multiply. Yeah, multiply. Or darken. Maybe even overlay. Yeah, it looks like multiply. Gives a little better, and maybe I would probably try a different. Oh, I know part of the reason we're not seeing it as much as it's hidden there. Yeah, it's weird. When I did it on my test, it worked really well. Let's see if I turn these all off. Can we actually see it here, or is it still locked into place? Let's get rid of it and try it again. Let's try something that's a little just. See there, you can see how it adjusts it. And that would work with any of the graduated filters. So you get a lot more, what they call it is live view control. So it really can be handy if you need to add a graduated filter. You can automatically adjust it, where before we had to keep redrawing it. So that's something new that they had added. Let's see, and one final thing. Let me turn this back on because I think I can do it here. They now have, let's see, I gotta find the right brush. Come on, where's my adjustment brush? I think that's it. There it is. So now they have an adjustment brush, which lets you pick what you'd like to adjust. Say you've got levels, curve. Let's try hue, saturation. And let's see, I got to make sure we're on the right one here. And if I paint over it, you can see that now it's created a mask that you can adjust. And if you were doing hue saturation, you can actually say, if I wanted to colorize that sky, I think I can add some more blue to it. But what's nice with this is you can paint with a brush, or you actually can do, I need to get into, say, this layer. And if I click on this, you can see how it's highlighting her, and it will create that same hue saturation mask, and it automatically masks for her. So now I can actually change her color, which of course would not be something that would work real well. But if I wanted to colorize her, I could change and do weird stuff that way, and change the saturation. So there's a lot of uses for it that you can do, but with that brush, you're able to select different sections of the image and be able to just brush or put in your adjustments that you wanted. And you have quite a few of the different adjustments. You've got brightness, contrast levels, curves, exposure, vibrance, hue, saturation, color balance. You can make it black and white, do a photo filter, all of these different things. And then with this tool, you can pick sections of it. You can change your opacity and flow. You can add to it, subtract to it. So you've got quite a bit of control using the new adjustment brush tool. And that seems to be the last item I had on my list. I made her green and ugly looking there. Any questions? Comments? Let's see, we'll stop share. Or did everybody fall asleep?
It might be the rain.
Yeah, everybody's rained out. But I know there's been some controversy with Adobe had sent out a bunch of stuff saying that there's a lot of stuff on YouTube saying a lot of stuff about that they're using your images to create the generative fills, and that they are not using your images, they're using the Adobe stock images that they have permission to use. Some of the new terms of service are just letting them, are allowing them to upload to process the images and then download them again. So there's a lot of bad stuff on the internet right now saying that Adobe's stealing your images and doing all sorts of stuff to it. None of that's really true. I listened to 3 different people that I respect. Matt Kloskowski, his friend Blake, and Terry Lee White, who actually works for Adobe, but I trust him. And they went through all the new terms of service, and most of that isn't any different than a lot of terms of service to be able to say they need to upload it to their servers, and they don't have their own servers. They rent servers out from bigger places like Amazon, I think, or somebody. So they need permission to be able to do that. It's somewhat like giving permission for Facebook to use your images. I don't trust Facebook quite as much as, say, Adobe, but who knows what Facebook all does with those images. But most of the times when you agree to their terms of service, it's mainly to be able to upload the images and make variations of it to process it and regenerate it into it working on your image, on your photo. So, so other than that, anybody have anything else? It's noon. Is it still raining out there? I got cloudy and 82 degrees. Oh, since everybody's so quiet, I'm going to say, let's call that a day. Do we want to keep doing things like this? Let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to keep bringing speakers in. I don't mind talking for an hour, but I don't know if you guys want to sit and listen to me all the time.
You've had some good speakers.
Yeah. I'm going to keep trying to find more. I keep finding newer ones that aren't so expensive.
And what's nice is we have a good variety too. Many different topics.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I'd like to get somebody on the Platypod. I think that's a really interesting tool, and it's not super expensive. I'd love to get somebody to talk on ON1 and Lumineer some more. I'm just not going to spend the money on ON1, and I'm actually not thinking of keeping Lumineer up anymore as well, because I'm finding I can do everything. I do everything in Photoshop, and then I do everything else with Nik software. Those are the 2 programs I work with, and I'm getting tired of shelling out $100-some a year for Luminar Neo.
What's kind of nice is at least with ON1, you can buy it outright. So, and it's not that pricey, you know?
Yeah, but it's only good for,
$59.69.
yeah, it's only that, unless you want to keep up with all the new improvements, and the new improvements come out so fast.
Yeah.
You buy it for a year, then you buy it next year. That Luminar Neo is the same way. I buy it every year, but you hate to, what I want is the new stuff. I don't care about the old stuff so much.
The first year, you do get free updates and upgrades.
Right, yeah, for
Oh.
that year.
Yes.
But by the time you go to next year, which for me, it's middle of the year, that Luminar Neo will be up from renewal again. And then I have to decide, do I want to spend that $100 and some to update it? The same with On1. I mean, it all ends up being a subscription if you like to stay up with the latest parts of the software.
True. True.
It's Adobe, you're paying it by the month, although you can pay it by the year as well. And granted, with Luminar Neo and On1, you are buying it outright in a way that they stop supporting it after that year and don't give you any more updates. So it will last a few more years, but if you want the latest and greatest, you just have to update it. And that
You really
means
have to see
spending
if
more
it
money.
really improves with an upgrade. Some of the stuff, not so much, but like the new one that was just updated for me, it seems to be a big improvement, and it didn't cost me any extra. So
Yeah.
we'll wait and see. There's some improvement that's, like removing, let's say, telephone poles or wires and stuff like that. That needs to be better.
Yeah, and they'll keep improving it, but then again, it really turns into a subscription.
True.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
You always
any
want
way
to
you
get
look
the
at it.
latest and greatest.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Jeff, do you use a Platypod?
yeah, I do,
Okay.
and I could probably demonstrate it, but they've got a lot of nice people talking about the Platypod and all the different versions. I mean, it really is sort of a handy tool for getting low. It's nice and stable, easy to carry around.
Yeah, it's
You
not
can
too bad.
attach lights to it and all that.
I use it to get down lower because I'm not one to lay on the ground anymore. So, but
Yep. Me neither. And I use it to photograph small stuff that that I want to add into a photo later on. I make little models of spaceships and that, and then I photograph them so I can put them into scenes that I've created. And it works nice for that because it gets me right level with the ship that I want to photograph. And then I can add a couple of small lights on arms to it and light it up just the way I want to light it. So I might try to show that. Maybe I'll shoot a video of doing it and then be able to play it here. It's sort of hard for me to show it here in my studio, but
they got all kinds of accessories. I remember I was at a Chicago conference when they first came out, and the gentleman was there presenting it. It was a very basic model. Now, of course, they got all kinds of accessories for it and all kinds of applications for it. But it was pretty neat. I know I used it. I bought it right there at that workshop, and I used it when we were over doing some street photography. This guy's doing a light display and able to set it right down on the concrete. It worked out really nice. So
yeah.
It's a useful tool.
Yep, I've used it at a couple of the flower gardens and that because it's easy enough to carry around, and it gets you a different view that you don't normally see. And I just run a long cable release so I can trip the camera and not have to be bent way over with it. So no, if I can even get permission from Platypod to play some of their videos, and I suppose we could, and not record it on YouTube, and that would be one way to show it. There's been some really interesting things. They've had some. I'd really like to get some of their speakers on, and I just trying to. They only give their names. They don't even give their websites, so it's hard for me to find them and make sure I get the right person. But I've seen a couple of interesting things where they're shooting toys or different things just on tabletop that it seems to work really nice. So
have you tried to go to B&H?
No, I haven't tried. Yeah, I haven't tried that, and that might be a thought too. I was hoping just to get, I just went to Platypod and said, hey, can you send me some of the speaker names and how to get a hold of them? And even if I could get, the Platypod guy himself on to talk about it, I guess that would be worth it. So
Jeff,
we'll
did you
see.
try him directly? Because I think that's kind of a one-man band for that company.
Yeah, I did. I emailed them and they were going to get back to me, and I haven't followed up on it lately. So I just need to do that. Not enough time in a day sometimes. So
I know Kelby bought into it quite a bit, so.
yeah. I bought into it. I've got quite a few of their parts. I like it. So no. All right. Well, let's call it a day. It's 12:15, and I'm hoping that
thank
it
you.
dries out enough that I can cut some grass.
Good luck
I
on
don't-
that, Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work. My grass is getting really tall.
Tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow.
Thanks very much, Jeff.
Never
All
on
right,
Sunday.
well,
Appreciate the info.
Okay,
Yep.
Thanks for putting this on
Thanks.
again.
Yep.
right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Everybody
Thank you.
have a nice day. We'll see you next month.
Bye.
Right.
Yeah, come on, cursor. Where'd you go again?